Hello, so I'm waiting for a locksmith. Long story short, I'm not coming to London, I have to wait here for someone to change my front door lock. So, what I thought I would do instead, I'm sending solidarity to Venice and Linda, and there's going to be loads of people there anyway, and I'll be there in spirit. And I'll be in Manchester later in the week, but I'm going to do a guide on how to deal with people where they are behaving harmfully to others because they can't see beyond their own identity. So we see this with TRAs, with the identify as a woman, and therefore women have a connection to me that I'm then allowed to target them, which they're using feminism to justify. And the left do it, I identify as your representation, I believe that this is the case, so I get to abuse you. So what you have to understand in both cases here, you're dealing with a falsely constructed identity. You're dealing with an identity where somebody has adopted it, and their identity largely depends on you. You as a woman. So what we've got is trans rights activists saying, and what they're really fighting is they're saying women don't exist independently from me anymore because I identify as a woman. This was never what equality legislation got you. The reason that they think this is possible is because the turf that they're fighting over is the Cosmo pages of the dying political press, and we're all a bit fucking mental. So here's what you have to understand. When you're dealing with somebody who has constructed a false identity for yourself, they can't see you, because all their energy is spent on managing their own identity. So they see the world, everything, entirely in terms of threat to or validation of that identity, and they welcome things that validate that identity, and they respond in a very set way to threats to that identity. Now, if their identity is dependent on you, so with trans rights activists, it's like I identify as a woman, and therefore you saying you are a woman makes me feel invalid. That's them giving you responsibility for managing their identity. You are responsible for validating my identity, and if you don't do so, I will get aggressive and abusive. You can withhold validation quite easily, because basically, you're an adult person and you're not responsible for managing their identity. However, depending on how much power they have, that will depend on how much harm they can do to you. And what you have to do first of all is say no. And you have to, other people around you might not understand what's going on here. They might think that these people have a legitimate claim on you, or that you're actually involved in this, or that you're actually involved in this abusive behaviour. You're not. So, first things first, don't mirror a narcissist. What they're looking for is a mirror. They're looking for validation. You just look at them and say, no, I don't see anything of myself reflected in you. There is nothing. You know, your version of the working class is bollocks, I don't recognise it. Your version of womanhood, it's nothing to do with me. I'm searching to see what relevance this fucking has to me. I do not exist to validate you. And then you'll get the rage, and the rage is where they try to maintain this connection to you and this control over you that they can't have. And that's what the rage is. It's about, well, hang on a minute, this person is now a threat to my identity. Now, with the rage, what they're attacking is not you. They can't see you. They can only see their own identity. So they've constructed an object onto which they project their own dysfunction. So they tell you all the things that they don't like about themselves, and they tell you all the things that they're doing, and they tell you things all that they've done to you. They tell everybody really, really loud, because they're confident that they're saying it to you. And they don't realise that they're actually describing their own motivations, their own processes, their own behaviour. The reason they've constructed a false identity for themselves, an idealised identity, is because they're ashamed of what they're doing. So largely they're going to accuse you of what they've been doing. So this is actually spectacularly useful. They will only accuse you of things that they're doing, but more importantly, they will only ask for things to deal with you that would deal with them. So when trans rights activists say they want to ban conversion therapy, I'd run with that. When they say that if we get all the women off the internet, reality becomes... They're telling you exactly where their influence is. So they're actually giving you a mirror all the time, which is actually really useful. And once you understand that you are not involved in what they've got going on in their little thing, you can use them to demonstrate. And because they're kind of like a rowboat with one oar just going in a circle, you can then use them to demonstrate. And it's best to do that. And that's where we have the trans rights activists at the moment. And so what you'll notice with trans rights activists is it always comes up with a mirror. So safeguarding is undermining the safeguarding, you know. We hate conversion therapy. And it's getting weird. Like the fact that the Girl Guides at the minute have been groomed sufficiently that they now believe that discussing safeguarding, which is the thing that underpins their entire organisation, without agreement, they can't function. they haven't realised that they're describing safeguarding as hate speech. Because what they're still processing is that identity. Now, what a narcissist will always do, what the left will always do, what TRAs will always do, they will always try to get you to discuss their identity. Do not discuss their identity. Be the context their identity is in. Be what they cannot be. Say, I do not see myself reflected in that. I'm not here to discuss your identity. I'm here to discuss your behaviour, the impact of what you have done. And you change the way that you process. Once people have started to behave abusively, you don't process their identity first, because that leaves you vulnerable to being susceptible to being abused by a narcissist. You look at the behaviour first. You are writing rape apologism, your actions are about undermining safeguarding, your identity appears to be the driver. But, you know, you're not saying you identify as a woman, so therefore this is womanhood. That's ridiculous. And what you also have to do is you have to let the rage show why the no was necessary with narcissists, because they don't want to show that this is narcissism. Most of these trans rights activism wanted to pretend this was feminism, and luckily, because they had a platform within a fairly toxic press, they got away with that. You know, they don't know how to function when you don't do that. So what we essentially have is a chat room full of people screaming and shouting that when they say, you discussing your biology invalidates me, what they're saying is my identity requires your subordination. Well, I'm really sorry, but I'm not responsible for managing over your identity. And if your identity requires my subordination, you're going to have to see someone, because that's not on the table. Now, we're all obligated to identify abusive male pattern behaviour and these patterns, and often women who've been in relationships with narcissists are very able to kind of articulate them very, very well. Now, what's important to understand is that this particular episode of narcissistic abuse is linked to scalps in media, in politics, in academia. And narcissistic abuse is largely what the media had quite relied on, with their kind of tabloid narratives about benefit claimants. And what will happen through the TERF business is, as people's understanding of this dynamic breaks, as the dissonance breaks and their brain has to repair where they have, you know, believed something that wasn't true because dissonance was being held, the brain has to repair that, and kind of dissonance, it kind of causes a reconstruction in your understanding of power, so that once you've dealt with one narcissist, you never miss it again. You see it coming a mile off. And that should actually have quite significant consequences in terms of our wider political economy, and certainly in terms of the ability of Twitter cultures to impose narratives with narcissistic abuse. I think that's kind of done and dusted now. And the way to deal with this is not actually, we're not in their fucking little Twitter bubble. We're the context that they can't be. So the TRAs have used all their cards right now. They're left to trying to pull billboards down. The dissonance is breaking, and we just have to describe their behaviour. It's very, very easy to deal with, but we have to be very calm. We have to not mirror them. But when they shout loud, we have to shout louder. So they took Posey's billboard down yesterday, which means that Prime Site Direct have taken down a billboard in direct contravention of the Equality Act just because it mentioned female biology. So now we need to crowdfund, and we need to get more billboards up, and we need to get the Advertising Standards Authority complained to. And we need to make noise, and we need to be a political force and say, we are what you cannot be. We're not fighting them, they're fighting reality. They're scared of us, and they fucking should be. Because we already won the minute they started demonstrating. They requested a safeguarding debate and started demonstrating male pattern abusive behaviour, and it's abundantly clear that that has been masking something very, very dangerous. So, that was my video, instead of going down to London. Much love to Venice Allen and to Linda Bellos. I don't think they'll need me tomorrow. I think there's going to be fucking hundreds of women down there. Yes, so that's my video for today.